From prison cell to senior VP, this is not a Hollywood script. It's Tito Guerrero's real life. After serving years in prison for a mistake he made as a young man, Tito earned his bachelor's and MBA, faced rejection after rejection, got a second chance driving trucks for Goodwill, and fought his way to becoming Senior Vice President of Operations at Illinois Action for Children. In this powerful episode, Tito shares the hard leadership lessons, executive survival strategies, and real world principles that helped him rise from rock bottom to C suite. I'm Vardan, and you're watching the Vardan Ter-Antonyan Show. Let's go.
Welcome to the Vardan Ter-Antonyan Show. We're sitting down with authors, speakers, entrepreneurs, executives, and industry leaders to talk about business, leadership, and strategy. In a world where competition is ruthless, information is power, and decisions move markets, this is where leaders learn how to win. Let's get into it.
Welcome to the show, Tito.
Thank you.
All right. So, you're one of the brightest examples of someone who started with absolutely nothing. And when I say started, I mean your career, the career path that brought you to this point today. Actually, it wasn't really nothing. It was in a negative because you had a giant disadvantage in the fact that people, would hesitate to hire you due to your past, right? The conviction and incarceration for many years. But so that's but you got through. So you made it through. So you kept pushing and pushing and pushing. Just like people say, it's not about like success is not about never being knocked down. It's about when you do get knocked down, how do you respond to that, right?
Yep.
There's a very famous Rocky quote that, I want actually every single person on earth to go and watch it because it's very, very kind of enlightening. It's simple, but it's not trivial. People need to hear it, right? So, but this show is about business. So let's get to business, so to speak. So what's the most expensive mistake you've ever made as a leader? And what did it teach you?
I would say one of the most expensive mistakes I've ever made was not being myself, not being my authentic self. And when I say that, that can come in different ways for different people. I think a lot of people can relate to kind of coming outside of yourself, letting something affect the way you react. And I literally ended up losing an executive position behind it, just coming out and getting so frustrated with things and how they were. And later on, I had an opportunity, which I jokingly tell people a lot of times we have the opportunity, but we don't take it, which is time to reflect and look back and go, was that really my fault? Because I kept thinking they pushed me to it, but I was the reality of them, right? So I would say that was like my biggest short step. And it was literally right after I actually moved into a way better position where I'm currently at. But it was a learning moment. And then taking that experience, and this is where I think leaders, true leaders, will take experiences and learn and grow from them, where people that like to call themselves leaders and they might not be, they're more managers than leaders. They'll go through experiences and never learn. And so they keep repeating it over and over again. Where I took it and was able to kind of spin it when I was interviewing for other roles. And I said, look, I did this.
Yeah.
Here's what I learned. I didn't leave my job. I was fired. And here's why. And it really played into, hey, this is a guy who's willing to, be vulnerable and share truth, not try to clean it up and say, oh, I went on a sabbatical or whatever, So yeah, I definitely think that was probably over my career and this well, but leaders don't tie to positions. Like when I was a truck driver, I was a leader, So it was just in that role at that point in my career, like that was one of the worst mistakes I could have made.
Mhm.
So
You know,
I like to think I'm still learning from it.
yeah, no, for sure. I understand you acutely because I've been in a situation like that, exactly like that. And so, you know, there was an agitator who came to me and, pressed certain buttons that I don't know how he knew that those buttons would work, but the buttons worked and I kind of exploded.
Mm,
And because of that, I didn't lose my job, but I set my career back by years. So, yeah, and that was one of the most kind of like the profound experiences that are teaching experiences. I've learned from that for sure. Like to be more in control of, you know, i- and to know that there are going to be agitators. There are going to be
oh, yeah.
people who in any environment, whether you are in prison or you are in the executive world or you are anywhere, it doesn't even matter. There's going to be people who are going to agitate you. And the one thing that I've learned uh, to do kind of by listening to other people is when someone presses your buttons really bad, what I do now is I just do this. I say, interesting. And I leave. Like the there has to be like a trigger, the word that you have to say, right? Because your brain is like your brain just wants to jump into like just fight, like
Hmm.
response, right? But my brain now brings about this word interesting, and I do this and I leave. That's it. Like you don't give that ammunition to the agitator, right? So now in prison that probably wouldn't work,
Not all the time.
but
No.
but in regular life, that works. So great response. I love it. And I noticed that I've been a chief science officer. I've been a site director where I was in charge of 40, 50 people, giant building, and everyone and everything inside, so to speak. And
Hmm.
so, and people, regular employees, they go to work, they work like, a lot, and so then and they see like the site director or an executive or whatever like spending most of the day in the office, and they don't really know what we do, how we do it or whatever. And so I've had cases when a person would come in and say, what do? You don't do anything during the day or whatever. They have no idea. What do employees misunderstand most about executives, in your opinion?
Oh man, yeah, it's a big gambit, right? And I always tell people, I jokingly tell people, I'll get up and like spin my chair and go, I know you want to sit here, you want the title and the pay, you don't want to have to make the decisions. And they're like, well,
Yes.
like what kind? And I go, well, it's like up and down the spinal cord of the agency, which is people complaining about their pay. Okay, so
Yeah.
looking at budgets and seeing what we can do about it.
Hmm.
Then people complain about their benefits. Okay, but if I have a set amount of money, I need to figure out, do I put it in benefits? Do I put it in pay? What's the best
Yes.
impact? What's gonna and I usually tell people this. Think of it this way. If everyone's invited to the party, then no one's invited. Like, you have to understand you're going to offend some people with the decisions you make, and the
Right.
higher up you get, you have to be comfortable with that, and it's a very
Yep.
uncomfortable thing, like because you want everyone to be happy. So, I might say, we're leaving an hour early because it's Martin Luther King Day," and that might piss a couple people off or it makes the rest happy, and I have to be
Right.
okay with that, and some
Right.
people say, "Well, why can't we leave half a day early?" Well, because we still have a job to do. Like, and then when we're talking about just literally when adversity hits, COVID, perfect
Right.
case in point. Like everyone had to learn to pivot, and a lot of agencies did really good. People didn't lose jobs, they didn't lose paychecks, but a lot of them they didn't pivot and they just okay, we'll
Right.
lay people off. Okay, we'll do that. And a lot of companies just folded, especially small mom and pops. So I
Mhm.
always tell people like those are the things you think about. You don't think about like, did we pump out 100 widgets today?
Right.
You think about like, do I have people to sell those 100 widgets to, and are they going to pay me enough to cover my cost of goods, pay the payroll? and afforded me the opportunity to maybe put some money in the bank so that if we want a new initiative, we want to try something new, we want to develop rewards and recognition. I mean, there's just so much, and I know you know, but a lot of
Yeah.
people just don't get the extent of what that is. And then also, for an individual like myself, I like to keep my finger on the pulse of the frontline worker
Mhm.
because 17 years ago, that was me fresh out of prison,
Yes.
hating my life. So I listen, but I don't think a lot of executives, I don't think a lot of leaders in high positions do this, but I always close the loop. When someone goes, "Hey, can we get mental health days?"
Mm.
I go, "Hey, I hear you. I hear why you want that. Let's talk about what that cost looks like, and are
Yeah.
you willing to sacrifice something to get it? Because if I got $100 to buy groceries, I can't get you 110. I
Right.
can get you 100. So I can switch the grapes out for apples if that's what you really want. But
Yeah.
and then they're like, "Oh, I get it. No one ever explained it to me." And I'm like, "I'm so sorry. Like that's my job, right? I work for you, not the other way around." So
Right.
I think that's like one of the big things is people don't get like, yes, you're sitting at a desk, but at the same time, there's so many different things going on at any given time, not to
Right.
mention, like, where I'm at now, we deal with federal and state contracts.
Mhm.
So and it's early childhood. So we're constantly on the cusp of, are they pulling something? Are they and if they do,
Yeah.
what does that mean for our staff? What does it mean for the children, parents, and providers that we provide services for? So that's always big, right? But on the
Yeah.
flip side, I also think you spin that question around and what do exec not know about the frontline worker?
Mm.
You
Right.
know, because I think it goes both ways.
Absolutely.
Like, as an exec will make a decision and feel like they don't have to be fully transparent of why they made it.
Mhm.
And I love being a nonprofit, but you really see that in the for profit. They're just like, hey,
Right.
11,000 jobs cut. Sorry.
Yeah.
The
In
CEO
the in
needs a
the
new budget.
text in a
Yeah.
text or an email, right?
In a
They don't
text or
even
an email, right? Yeah. Yeah, but yeah, I think it really comes down to like what really goes on, and I'll tell you a funny anecdote on that. At one of the agencies I was at, they asked some of the directors. They were like, "Well, hey, explain what you do."
Yeah.
And I was amazed how many people could not say what they did on a regular basis. Like they were like, "Well," and so I started like, "Listen, well, you manage 17 sites. Well, you do your budget." They're like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah." What Tito's saying, and I'm like, but they get so into that rhythm of this is just my daily function
Yeah.
they can't even articulate it when they're asked, like, what do they do?
Yeah, exactly. No, I always think about it as making existential, visceral, very important decisions under immense uncertainty, right? So, regular worker knows that he or she they're going to come to work and they're going to do this. Like they know what they're going to do. They're going to do this, they're going to do that. As an executive, you go to work, you have no idea what kind of uncertainties are ahead. And so you need to make the right decisions, and to de-risk the organization, right? Now, one of the risks to the organization is unhappy employees. And so with that, you have to make the organization happy, but you have to make your employees happy to make your organization happy, right? So
Yeah.
both of those go into it. So that's why the decision makers are, they get paid well or whatever, and that's the reason that employee who actually came to me and said, "What are you doing? You're doing nothing," and stuff like that. Like, and then I sat down and I explained to him what I do on a daily basis. And he sat there and was like, "I had no idea." Well, guess what? Do you see this whole site, 40, 50 people here working and stuff like that? Like, I'm responsible for hitting, I'm responsible for forecasting a revenue every month
Yeah.
and hitting it.
Yep.
And it's extremely easy to miss a forecast. It's easy to miss forecast it, like say a number which is too high and then
Mhm.
not hit it. You say a number that's high to please the board or CEO or whatever, CFO, but then
Mhm.
you don't hit it and then they get angry with you. So, and that's the thing, like being an executive, being in a high position like that requires you to say what you're going to do and deliver. Like
And
if you
deliver.
don't deliver, they're mad at you and you're the first that's gone. not the frontline employees and stuff like that. But at the same time, you have to be also set some time up during the day and go and see what your employees are doing, ask them if they're
Yeah.
okay. And matter of fact, the best ones actually go and do it themselves. The best
Oh yeah.
executives go do the job and which is why your background, like how you started, how you went up is so relevant. Like you've actually done all these jobs, which is why you deserve that executive position the most, as opposed to some guy who they brought in from somewhere who has no idea what's happening. They just got the MBA and they think that on that. My question is, what do you not, like when you go get your MBA, which you have a business, bachelor's in business administration and master's.
Hmm.
What do you not learn there that you know, what is missing from the MBA that the real world executives have, that they do, that they
It
get from experience?
Yeah, it to me, it's always been the entrepreneurial mindset,
Mm,
the ability to look at things wherever you're working. If it was Tito's, whatever,
yeah,
would I be making this decision, right?
yeah,
And I benefited with my lived experience over my formal education because my father was an immigrant
yeah,
entrepreneur who, you know, I was working in his machine shop at the age of 8, and I didn't realize how much I learned until, like, after prison. I was like, "Wow, that was my crash course in business."
yeah,
But, yeah, when you get your formal education, it's more around being the worker bee and, like, here's how you do an analytical study, here's how
yeah,
develop a communication, but it doesn't tell you. And I love and hate COVID. It's a great
yeah.
example of, you're gonna see who has it and who doesn't because,
Mhm.
like, when COVID hit, I'll never forget, like, my very first thing was, "What are we doing when we come back?" And they're like, "We don't know if we are." And I was like, "We are, and we
Yeah,
need to prep around it. Like, what are the safeguards? Let's develop white papers, training, like, da, 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 da." And,
right.
like, I was just all in on that. And it was in my head, I'm like, "This is what my dad would be doing." Like,
Mm,
'cause if we don't make money, we don't eat. And that,
yeah,
you eat what you kill type of deal, and they don't teach you that per se.
mm,
The other piece is that, adaptability piece. Your education is very straightforward. It's like things will come to you, and this is what you do and how you process it, and then you get this on the back end. It doesn't tell you when the printer gets jammed, what do you do? It doesn't tell you like there was a fire in your building and all of your intellectual property was on a drive that was there. Now what do you do? Like,
right.
it doesn't tell you how to navigate that stuff. And to me, that's where book smart people shut down,
Mhm.
and then you see the real leaders kind of emerge because 'cause they're like,
Yes.
"I know what to do, like, let's try this, let's try that." So, yeah, I I call it the entrepreneurial mindset because that's more relative to me, but I would say, like, in general terms, is they don't teach you how to be adaptable. Like, they're not
Mhm.
throwing hard, capstone projects at you where they're like, "Okay, the stuff just hit the fan. What do you do? Let's see. Do you got it?"
Yeah.
So, yeah, that would be my response on that one.
So, what I hear you say is that experience overcoming adversity in your life teaches you how to react to other adversities, not necessarily same type of adversities, but your mind sort of develops elasticity or plasticity, they call it neuroplasticity. It's like
Mhm.
an ability to make decisions under stress and uncertainty and stuff like that. So those are like the best conditions that you need in the future to be the best leader you can be. Is that is that in ballpark what the truth is about it?
Uh, yes, and I would just add into that to be a great leader and to continue being a leader as time progresses, you have to be a constant learner because
Mm,
nothing stays the same. So you have to have that
yes.
open-mindedness. Like, I jokingly tell people, I'm like, my MBA is like old now. So to me, it's not relevant. Like, and it probably wasn't that relevant then, So I'm like, it's not like I'm staring. I got both my degrees on the wall over here. I'm like they're nice, wallpaper. But other than that, like,
Right.
I'm Tito, not those.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And, school in general, I always say that school is a training mechanism for your brain. A lot of the things that you learn in high school or just the entire time in school or whatever, a lot of it you don't use in real world. Some of it you do, a lot of it you don't, but it trains your brain to learn,
Yeah,
to learn how to learn, to learn how to learn fast, to apply, to make decisions on the uncertainty and stuff like that. So absolutely, I agree with you. I have masters in molecular biophysics, and do I use all that knowledge every day? No, not at all. But I am more curious and more effective than other people who don't have that degree or whatever. So,
right.
when people talk about, like, some people say they don't like school, school shouldn't be there or whatever, that's not true. They say schooling, like universities and stuff like that, is, a scam or whatever. Like somebody like Charlie Kirk used to say that. I like Charlie
Hmm.
Kirk in some of the things, but some of the things he said weren't, jiving with me like that. Uh,
Agreed.
and no, schooling is good. Schooling trains your brain to perform better in real life. So, and one thing that I've always kind of, I noticed myself, and I actually wrote a book about it, about that penetrating into the executive world, C-suite, stuff like that,
Hmm.
is that I noticed that up until about director or VP, you progress by merit. You do a good job, and a position opens up, you go up. But at that VP level, it's not merit. It's more politics. So how much, in your opinion, how much of corporate success is merit and how much it is politics?
I that that's a good and a hard question. I definitely think it varies depending on where you're at, but I definitely think politics and not just politics. I would couple that with relationships.
Right.
So, if you show up at a new agency and you're a VP or whatever, and you're hoping to make it to the C suite, but the other VPs in the current C suite have all been there 20 years, regardless how well you knock the ball out the park, those
Yeah.
relationships are going to, like, they want to see their friends move up. And I think on the other end of that spectrum, you also have where you might see individuals who aren't performing. They
Hmm.
might even be toxic to where they're hurting the agency, but because they've been there, because there's the relationships, they continue to be there, right?
Right.
So then you got the politics, which is usually set at the top if you have a strong CEO. If you have a weak CEO, it might be set below there. But those politics will play in too, because if you're not playing ball, it just doesn't work out. And I will
Right.
say, even when I was working my way up early on, like I had my very first in the corporate office, but I
Right.
was like a $9 an hour clerk, like, but I
Mm,
was there. So
mm,
I was like, I need to show myself every day that I have potential, right?
mhm.
But I mean, the politics for me to get from that to a salary position, oh my God. I mean, I was jumping through hoops and, smiling when I didn't want to. And then when I got there, I started bringing more of my authentic self. But I joke with people and say, you don't know how many times I didn't eat good because I was buying Starbucks for all the big wigs because they like Starbucks. And every time I was like, oh my God, I got to eat, top ramen for lunch because
Yeah.
I spent half my check on Starbucks this week. But it got me at the table with the right people at the right time. And, it's the politics of it, like
Yeah.
if you want to show up, you got to treat once in a while. So that's what I did. But yeah, I think depending on the agency and even just abroad, a lot of times it's relationships. And when people, they might think you or someone else is a right person for that promotion, but
Mhm.
because they don't like you for whatever reason,
Yeah.
they'll let that go first. And this is where I jokingly, and anyone who works with me or knows me hears me say it a lot. I'm like, I accept I'm a weirdo. Like, if I don't like you, but I know you're the best person for the job, I'm pushing for you to get it. And people will be like, "But you don't like him." But he's right. He's right. Like, I don't have to like him. This is a job. We need
Right.
to execute the best we can. So that's a person, but 90, I'll be generous. 90% of people won't do that. They're gonna be like, I don't like
Right.
Tito, so no.
Right. Right. Yeah. So, you've lived through situations where fear, uncertainty, and external circumstances were very real, very real. What did you learn about anxiety and control that most people still get wrong? How do you control that? How do you control when you are in the environment where you don't control the environment? And a lot of people do get like extremely anxious and stuff like that. They can't control it. So, the, tell people what to do when they are just so anxious and agitated and stuff like. What do you do?
A few things. First off is accepting what you can't control, right?
Right.
If there's a potential that something's gonna happen, like, you can sit and put all your attention and your focus and your time into what if, and it's not helping you. That's where
Right.
all that anxiety comes from. So both in prison and even when I got out, tons of that, right? You would think prison had more. I felt like there was a lot more anxiety when I got out because it was like I lost 12 years. Now I got to
Mm,
play catch up. Like I'm seeing my friends in these jobs with families and everything. And I'm like, I don't have any of that. Like, what do I do? So, first is always be present with yourself, like sit in the moment, accept what is happening. I think that's one of the biggest parts of anxiety and fear. You don't want to accept it. You want it to go away and it doesn't work. Like close your eyes, click your heels, you're still
yeah.
there. So you got to deal with it. The other thing is understanding, and I heard this in a podcast and I love it. It's like fear is this huge lake and it looks so menacing and the other side of fear is like so far away and you just don't want to try and get in there. You're going to drown. But then when you take a step, you realize it's only 2 inches deep. I just have to walk through it. I have to be able to get through fear to get to the other side of whatever I'm
Hmm.
trying to get to or get out of. And I learned that like hardcore in prison. Like some of
Mm,
the things I went through, it was just like, oh my God, this is the worst ever. And then, oh my God, I'm in another situation. This is the worst ever. And it's like, none of these are the worst ever. I'm going to get through it.
right.
And worst case scenario, like I die right now, but I
Mm,
still got through it because now I'm dead. Like, so
right.
I just developed this mindset of focus on where I want to be versus what I think might happen or what is going on.
Hmm.
And knowing that majority of time to get to something that's worthwhile, you got to go through some pain, you got to go through
Hmm.
some hardship, some work. Something has to happen. And it's made it a lot easier. Does that mean I don't get anxious? Of course I do. Does it mean I don't have fear? No, I have fear a lot of times. But what I do, and I think it's funny you said the thing about the clutching your beard. I had a coworker tell me, they're like, "Oh, Tito's thinking." I'm like, "What?" She's like, "Yeah, every time you start doing this, I know." And I'm like, "Oh my god, she knows my tell." Uh, but but that's the thing. Like, I'll sit and stop and I, once again, not everyone has this opportunity, but I usually tell people like, if you're in those situations outside of like something's actually happening right now, pause, like go for a walk, disconnect, separate
Mhm.
yourself, and just tell yourself, I'm okay. It's going to be okay.
Right.
And don't listen to what other people say. That's the other big thing. And I hate to say it, we're in a new age. Other people is AI, Google, and everything else too. Like, stop typing stuff in and going, oh my God, I must have a cyst. I must have like, stop, stop looking for the negative and look for the positive in it.
Right.
That's been probably the biggest mind shift I had. I was always kind of a positive person prior to prison, but like it's not so much being positive as just knowing that I can get to the other side of that lake.
Yes, yes, absolutely. It's about, I always say like you cannot control what you cannot control, like life out there. It it happens whether you're there or not. Everything is the same. The life
Yeah.
is the same, world is the same, people are the same. Everything is in your brain basically. So you can
Yes.
control your brain, control everything. Control your circumstance or how you respond to it, I guess. Yeah. So I've had cases where, I had to make a decision between like a leadership decision between the decision that looks right on paper, the decision that I would be praised for by my bosses, but a decision that was felt wrong emotionally. Have you ever felt that?
Yes. And I will tell you almost every time I can think of,
Hmm.
it's still on paper, it's right. And from a business standpoint, it's the right thing to do. I know it's the right thing to do. It has to be done. The thing that would hold me up on the other side is that anytime it has to do with people,
Hmm.
right? Or say, for example, because I'm in nonprofit, it's the mission. Are the external customers going to be affected by this? And even though, it might be a thing where we're losing money somewhere when I was in my Goodwill days and it was a retail business. And it's like, so we got to consolidate. And I would always go, okay, this 100% is the right thing to do. But I would, and this is where I'm different. I would focus on, okay, I'm doing it. How do I save everyone's job? Like,
Right.
how can I shuffle the deck, put them somewhere else? Once again, a lot of executives don't do that,
Right.
and I've told a lot of people this story with my wife. We booked a trip to Ireland and didn't know, but she was pregnant. And so she ended up like morning sickness the entire time we're there. So she just stayed in the hotel. And I get a call and they're like, hey, the board made a decision. We have to cut the workforce by 10%. And I'm like, oh, and they're like, we were just going to cut 10%, but we knew you would want to do it yourself. So
Mm,
I literally went to a pub. 4 Guinnesses later, I had orchestrated a way to cut 10% without anyone losing benefits, anyone losing a job. For the most part, people lost,
mm,
like, they went from 40 to 38 hours and those kind of things, and I was able to communicate it to everyone that no
mhm.
one's, like, you might lose a couple hours, we'll
Right.
bounce back, we'll get it back, and my peers, they just cut. So they just we were losing 3 people here, 4 people there. And so, like, my team was so grateful. And I'm like, yeah, but I still feel so bad. Like, it doesn't make
Yeah.
sense. Like, we shouldn't be doing this. But I think it's things can look right on paper. They can feel bad. I tell people back to the prior question, like something we can and can't control is our emotions. Like we
Right.
can, but to an extent you can't, right? Like when you feel bad, you're gonna feel bad. You could try to like rationalize it and put it in a box somewhere. But for me, it's like, okay, when I feel bad and it's emotionally based, then I go, can I do anything about it? Is there a way I can try to feel good still because I
Mhm.
know what I'm doing is the right thing to do? So I just wish more leaders were kind of focused. And then back in the COVID days, like I came to the exec and was like, we should take a salary cut.
Mhm.
Like if before we talk about cutting any jobs, let's cut our pay or like, do all of us need to be here?
Right.
It's, and I was a new exec. So like, they're
Yeah.
all looking at me like, oh yeah, thanks new guy. Like great idea.
Trouble.
But
The new
yeah,
guy's trouble.
but I still think like Tito, the truck driver fresh out of prison, what would he want me to do?
Mm,
He would want his job.
right.
So now that I'm sitting where I sit, how do I take care of that, Tito? And I think a
Right.
lot of people forget where they came from because last time I checked, no one was born into an executive job. So,
Right. Well, some people do.
well, yeah, I take that back.
So
They a
some people are
little
born.
different. Like they're born into owning things, but
Yeah,
not actually.
exactly. Billionaire kids, millionaire kids.
Yeah,
Yeah.
billionaire. Yeah,
Yes. So actually, this was a refreshing kind of an idea of instead of letting go people, just cut the salaries of you know some people, but just keep them, still keep them. That gives them an opportunity to, or gives them time to maybe find something else somewhere else for a full time or whatever. But you're like they end up loving you for it,
yes,
and it's important. It's important for, I always say, like, I'm a little bit superstitious that way. The more people hate you, the the worse your life goes, because they
yes.
constantly you you're in their brain constantly in a negative light, so negativity breeds like negativity. And the more people love you,
Mm,
the better your life is. That's what I think.
agreed. No, I agree 100%.
Yeah. So, you being in operations, and you've been in operations in almost basically your entire career. Have
Yeah.
you ever kind of, because a lot of companies in operations apply something that's called Lean Six Sigma. Are you familiar with that?
Yeah.
Do you
Mhm.
use that in your work?
I have in the past. I will say there's things that, and you got the Kaizen stuff and
Yeah,
everything.
yeah,
I love those things, but I love them in moderation
yeah.
and where they're applicable. A lot of times when you incorporate those, they want you to drink the Kool-Aid. Like they want you to be full in. Like you can't adapt part of this. You have to do it
Mhm,
all. And to an extent, I agree. Right? Like you don't do a diet without exercise and all this stuff. You can do different forms of things. For me,
yeah.
it's always been looking at what you have going on. So every business is going to be different. Yes, if you're a manufacturer and you go to another manufacturing plant, you might have a lot of similarities. Just like in my Goodwill days, it was something I heard there and I was like, wow, I would have never thought that, but it makes sense after I started bouncing around and seeing different Goodwills.
Mhm,
There's 150 plus independent Goodwills across the United States, Canada, Mexico, right? You go to different Goodwills in different states, they have that same feel. Like you feel
mhm.
like, donation that, but the saying internally at Goodwill is you've seen one Goodwill, you've seen one Goodwill because they do things differently internally, right? The mechanisms
Right.
that get product from a donation to the sales floor and then to an aftermarket if they don't sell is different. So when it comes to operations and even working at my father's shop, what I've learned is you find a right way of doing things and then you do that the next day. And it's my favorite word, you challenge it.
Mm,
How do I make it better? And it
right.
might take you a year, it might take you 6 years to make it better, but you never stop going, "Is this the best way?" You know, "Is this best for the people that are doing the work? Is this best for the people receiving the product, the service, whatever it is?"
Mhm,
And you're constantly challenging it. So, I don't believe that there's a cookie cutter box set for anything.
right.
And it's like right now, AI is like
Mhm,
super big. And it's about how do we incorporate AI and then how do we safeguard against AI of
mhm.
data being sucked out into the world, right?
Right, right.
So there's just so much. And so from an operations perspective, and I always tell people like they're like, well, how do you go from operations from here to here? And I go, operations is the same. It's the mechanisms that support
Mm,
the machine of the business. So you don't have to know about manufacturing. You don't have to know that helps, but
mhm,
from an operations perspective, you like I come in and assess. I want to see ecosystems. I want to see the technical systems being used, the physical systems being used. Do you have standing desks? Yes, no, why? Are you still using fax machines? And I
mhm,
jokingly say that because we are. All these different tools that are being used, and then do you have documented processes?
mm,
I keep hearing from people you're not supposed to say the drop dead theory anymore. You're supposed to say, so if Tito won the lotto, like would we be able to do his job? And I'm always like, if Tito got hit by the bus walking across the street, do you know where the files are? Are they clearly labeled so you can get them? Like, and these
right.
are things. So and once again, COVID was a great teacher on this because people did get sick, some people did pass away, and people had to fill those shoes. And in those respects, people learned, oh my God, we didn't have the procedures weren't in place. It was all up here. So when those gatekeepers leave,
Mhm,
you're stuck. So for me, operations is those are great tools that can be used, but it's just like time management. And you know this better than anyone else. Like I can use post-it notes, I can use a calendar on my phone, I can use 20 different things. I can't tell you what to use because you have to use what works for you.
mhm,
So I think in operations, I come in and I have my mindset, but I'm asking my internal customers like, what works for you? And then once
mhm,
again, I lean into that. I don't care if two people hate my guts and the decisions I make. If the 498 other staff say this was a great job, like, those 2 people can hate me all they want. Like, it's about what's best for the entire team, not parts of the team.
right. Absolutely.
So, I jokingly tell people, I'm like, "I'm operations because I look at it from an operations standpoint, like,
Mhm.
why are we doing that? Like, why is that cord there without a cover on top of it? Someone's going to trip. Like, I'm looking at all the different little nuances of it. But at the end of the day, it goes back to the people. Like, are
Right.
we providing people the resources and support they need to get the job done? So it's fun when you're operations, but you're also over HR, IT, and everything else, because then you kind of have your fingers in all the right cookie jars.
Yes. Yes, for sure, for sure. All right, Tito, one last question for you. Have you forgiven the younger version of yourself for the mistake that you did, that got you in prison?
That's a hard one. I'd say yes, in the sense that nothing that's going on in my life right now would be going on if that didn't happen.
Exactly.
Um, I also kind of believe that nuance of everything happens for a reason, and for whatever reason that happened, and the way, the whole butterfly effect, not just
Mhm.
me, but how that touched other people negatively, positively, and otherwise. I can say, I accept is
Mhm.
probably a better word than forgive, because I took a life, and to me, I don't care what anyone does. You could steal $1, take 10 lives, pour toxic waste somewhere. Like, you can never repay the effects of whatever you
Mhm.
did, small or large.
Right.
What you can do is try to be better after the fact.
Mhm.
And that has been my commitment, taking care of other people and trying to help people get to or get through things as best as I can. And we hear the term servant leadership a lot,
Mhm.
and people love using it. I try to live that, though, whether it's work, in my personal life. Want to see people do better. And if my story can help someone,
Mhm.
then yeah, I forgive younger me, because I wouldn't have the story to use to kind of promote, like, there is a way to get through
Right.
something, and you can do better, and you can achieve whatever success, translates to you. Because I know success for me 17 years ago was getting a job. I didn't
Right.
care what it was,
Right.
and I like to think I've had a few other successes, not to mention just getting married and having a child and all that
Yes.
other great stuff. But yeah, I mean, how awesome is it to meet and talk to people like you? I would have never thought that, you know,
Thank
10,
you.
15 years ago. So yeah, I guess I can say I forgive them, but I'll never be able to pay back my debt. That's the one thing I can't let go.
Right. Right. I understand for sure. And there was, because it was up to life, right? But there was something from the universe or something like that that stopped it from happening, stopped the life, in prison from happening. And so that makes me think that you're destined for great and amazing things. That's when you feel like there's something divine happening. Yes, you did it, but something happened like that. And what you did was you didn't just squander it. You moved forward and you kind of dedicate your life to making other people's lives better. And that's amazing. And I thank you for that. And thank you so much for coming on my show and telling your story, as well as, educating people on operations and business and leadership and all this stuff. Thank you so much. It's been an amazing experience.
No, thank you for the opportunity. It's been a pleasure speaking with you.
All right. Bye.
Bye bye.
All right.